You did it.
The Traitors UK is over for another civilian series, and after this channel's general video discussing the franchise internationally, with a focus on the UK and other English language versions, I thought it would be fun to do a follow-up specifically on Season 4. So, spoiler alert, if it wasn't obvious and you haven't seen it yet, this video will contain spoilers. If this is the kind of content you like, please like the video, subscribe and ring the bell for more videos like this. It will also help the channel grow. First, a quick response to a few comments on the previous video I did about the Traitors. I was a bit dismissive about the Traitors Canada, but a lot of people seem to really like it. So I'll be watching that in due course. I'll also be watching the Traitors Island, which has now officially started airing in the UK, with the first couple of episodes already available.
Ready to play?
So the big twist in the opening week, of course, was the Secret Traitor, and of course the difference was it was a secret to us as well, and that was basically the whole point of it. In the past, some people have suggested things like this.
But I think it'd be brilliant if the Traitor starts episode 1 and you can either watch the BBC One's version or BBC Two's version. On BBC Two's version, they don't tell you who the traitors are.
That wouldn't be practical, and you can't really do a whole series without the audience knowing who the traitors are either. Because a huge part of the enjoyment is that we know what's going on while the faithfuls don't. That said, I thought this was a really nice twist. It put the viewers briefly in the position of the faithfuls without letting that idea dominate the series. Now, of course, I think the big difference is, even though we were sort of in the position of the faithfuls, we were still getting an edit which was going to highlight likely candidates, and that's something the faithfuls don't get, of course. After the first episode, I had a strong feeling Fiona was the secret traitor. The way she was highlighted in the edit, and some of the things she said in interviews stood out.
This is a very interesting game, you know.
Now, of course, that could have been red herrings. The producers love giving us red herrings, but in this case, it wasn't. I know there was a bit of a red herring with Ellie when she actually used the phrase secret traitor.
Sitting and watching is a kind of secret traitor.
But that seemed like too much of a red herring, if you know what I mean. So I was a bit surprised. Nobody else really picked up on Fiona. A few people thought she was the secret traitor, but I thought a few more people would have been suspicious of her. And there was also the way that she didn't, in the entries in the confessional as well, she never specifically spelled out she was a faithful. There was all this talk of being mischievous and is sort of very selectively edited.
Never underestimate a woman of a certain age.
Having a former detective as a contestant was a really interesting idea. It's happened internationally on versions I've seen before, but I don't think we've had one in the UK really. We might have, I just can't remember right now. And I'm glad she was a faithful. Producers could have been tempted to make her a traitor, like we've seen in Australia and New Zealand, but it's more interesting to see whether those investigative instincts actually work in this environment. Unfortunately for her and the faithfuls, they didn't. Her suspicions landed on the wrong people, and crucially, she confided in what turned out to be the season's lead traitor. In hindsight, she may have been the person who lost the game as well for the faithfuls, weeks before the final. Because Rachel, of course, was able to use that in one of her defences, which probably helped her not get banished. It was nice that despite being a civilian version, a few celebrities were included in the cast. It was good to see the UK's tallest person, Ellie, in the lineup, a young Jasper Carrot, and Steve McDonald from Corrie, or was it Dougal from Father Ted? So let's talk about some of the traitors themselves, or all of the traitors for that matter. There wasn't that many, was there? We've mentioned Fiona, and a lot of the chaos stemmed from her decisions, but we'll come on to her antics. Hugo was one of the original traitors, and he felt like an obvious choice, a big character, very confident, a bit Apprentice from 10 years ago energy, but I think he expected the show to revolve around him, but he always felt like someone who would end up banishing himself early, which of course transpired.
That is beyond mean.
Sorry, Hugo. Rachel. Now, she reminded me a bit of Mina from last season, but maybe she had a slightly harder edge, more strategy, and she did, let's face it, have a fair bit of luck. The timing of events really worked in her favour, and she only made it to the final because of the chest of chance coin toss. She was really good, but on the toss of a coin, effectively, she could have been gone, so lot of luck there. Stephen was a terrible traitor, even though he won, which might sound contradictory, but I think he did get incredibly lucky. The chaos caused by Fiona accusing Rachel mid-series and Harriet turning on Rachel completely took the heat off him. That combined with the murder of Jesse allowed him to slip under the radar. The double bluff paid off here. It doesn't always. It did for Jonathan Ross a bit, I think, in the last celebrity version, but this time it worked perfectly. It was remarkable that we've now had 2 UK series without a recruitment as well. Even when they've had the opportunity, the traitors have been cautious. Recruitment changes the whole complexion of the game. So I'd like to see more of it in the future because it's a big part of the format. Although I think once habits and certain strategies bed into the traitors and then the faithfuls get wise to them, then we are likely to see the opposite happen. So we probably will see a few more recruitments in the future. But I think there is that idea of, well, maybe they don't really help the traitors that much. And as ever, relationships were one of the big talking points, one of the big points of speculation this season. Some viewers seem to think nearly everyone was connected, which doesn't really make sense. If everyone knew each other, everyone would know that everyone knew each other. And I don't think that would be that interesting, really, if they all happened to know each other and sort of had to keep it a secret. It's more the sort of thing producers would do on a failing series. It was hard to avoid speculation, even if you stayed off places like the Traitors Reddits. Ross and Ellie being in a relationship was known before the reveal. The best reveal, though, was Roxy and Judy being mother and daughter early on.
Judy seems lovely, but I'm bound to say that, considering she's my mum.
And I think it was probably earlier than producers would have liked due to how the votes fell. 2 relationships in a series feels about right. I know some people don't like relationships at all and think it's unfair. Well, when has a relationship ever really helped anybody on the show? And secondly, it's just a bit of extra fun for the viewer, really. This year's relationships didn't quite reach the level of perfection of the reveal of Ross and Diane in Series 2, of course. That was flawless in terms of timing and just the payoff.
Paul just couldn't be my son, but Ross is.
One relationship I genuinely thought might exist, and I don't know if I'm the only one, but didn't exist, was that between Hugo and Fiona early on. In the first episode, I wondered if they might be mother and son. The likely age difference, sorry Fiona, both being from Wales, and then there was this conversation in the train and Hugo said,
Whereabouts are you from?
Swansea.
Oh, brilliant. So I'm from Cardiff.
Lovely.
Originally, I'm trying to persuade the Welsh person that I'm from Cardiff. The jury's out.
That theory died pretty quickly once Fiona voted for Hugo, although given her behaviour, wouldn't have ruled it out entirely, and if she was his mom, she'd probably be glad a bit of a break from Hugo. Anyway, we'd know if she was his mom by now. There was also speculation about Jack and Jessie, which never rang true. They had very different accents. One had a northern accent, she was from Hull, and the other one had an Essex accent, he was from Essex. Now, whilst it's not been unknown for the Traitors contestants to put on accents, Charlotte, for example, neither of these two seemed like the type that would be putting on an accent. Unless they were long-lost siblings, of course, then it would have been possible. That could actually be a fun twist for a future series. Imagine that long-lost family meets the Traitors. You ain't my mother, you're a traitor. Yes, I am. Your mother, I mean, but definitely a faithful, not a traitor. The Faithfuls weren't great this series. That's not entirely their fault. It's an inevitable byproduct of the format. Big personalities stand out and get banished early. Anyone who seems too clever gets murdered. So there's a real balance to play. Although difficult to have known who the clever ones were here among the faithful. I've never quite got the traitors must be in one of the cages though thing. It was traditional logic when putting 3 up in the early episodes to do something that one was probably a traitor. Then we sort of stepped back from that because everyone knew that one of the traitors was likely to put themselves in. But when it's almost half the cast, I'm not sure how strong that logic is and how much that matters. Maybe I'm missing something. The middle of the series was absolute chaos. Producers must have been thrilled when Fiona went for Rachel, even if it didn't really make sense strategically. Never really benefited Fiona, and it should have been the thing that ended Rachel's game, especially combined with the Harriet situation. There was just too much heat on Rachel, and you would have thought that the Faithfuls would have eventually taken her out of the game. In that week, it seemed like a really dramatic ending, with Matt asking the traitors to murder Jesse and to be a traitor. But apart from the murdering Jesse part, that all came to nothing and was completely overshadowed in the next episode. Harriet's moment was fascinating. There's been speculation that it was partly a publicity stunt, and it's certainly been great exposure for her. She'll probably sell more books than ever. Her lines when accusing Rachel felt very dramatic. "I bet you wish you could have killed me when you had the chance," sounded like a line she'd write in one of her books. Not that I've ever read one of her books, or a book for that matter. It made great TV, but if she'd played it a bit cooler and stayed longer, the outcome might have changed.
"I bet you wished you'd killed me when you had the chance."
Final brought everyone together as always. The cliffhanger between episodes 11 and 12 was frustrating but brilliant. So my theory was that it was going to be James who was going to stay, because they would want people to think that Rachel was going to be in the final if she wasn't, because obviously she's been such a major character, as had James really, but Rachel's obviously more core to it. So because they did that cliffhanger, I really thought Rachel was going to go at the start of the episode. I was very wrong. I'm not even sure producers actually realised how they were going to run it, because in the end, of course, we didn't see the traitors getting revealed to Roxy, because they did that with James, so they must have thought they were going to leave on the same episode, so they obviously decided to make that a cliffhanger a bit late in the game. But once again, it came down to a coin toss, and James being revealed as a faithful, it felt like a bit of a turning point really. You thought, all right, Rachel's gone now. Can't survive this. But I think by this point, the traitors had the numbers. All they had to do was muddy the waters and vote as a block. It looked like Faraz was going to crack it, only for him to back down on his Rachel suspicion, which I found a bit odd really, because after that round table, when Rachel, just by a flip of a coin, didn't get banished, Rachel's persona and a very steely attitude didn't change at all with Faraz, but she managed to convince him anyway. And they voted together, which got them to the end.
Jack, I think your name down.
And that was the game.
That's the game.
Frustrating that they didn't listen to Jessie earlier in the series. It's Jade I also felt sorry for, never seemed to catch a break. It would have been interesting to see her if she was actually a traitor, although she wasn't keen on that idea, it seemed.
Jade, were you hoping to be recruited at any point during the game?
I couldn't cope being a faithful, let alone a traitor.
I do also wonder if she felt a bit cheated not being able to reveal her identity when she was eliminated. There is an argument a player should be allowed to reveal their identity at the final round table, as traitors have so much of an advantage in terms of information throughout the game. Stephen was lucky to make it to the end. Rachel probably deserved it more, but both played well enough to get there, and things just worked in their favour. I do tend to root for the faithfuls because that moment of revelation and cheering is satisfying. Even in the Celebrity Series, I wanted the faithfuls to win until Alan Carr did, and then I was happy because it was incredible television. The final didn't quite reach that level for me. Losing Jack without a reveal felt a bit flat, but it's hard to see how they could have done it differently without giving the game away. Having two traitors at the end ultimately won it for them. Stephen could have easily have put the proverbial knife into Rachel, because I think it was in Stephen's hands ultimately, because I think he knew he had the deciding vote. If it had been the other way around, it would have been interesting to see if Rachel would have done the same thing. I'm not so sure, but we'll never know. While it was nice to see a two-traitor win and the first female to win as a traitor, it felt a bit underwhelming not having an I'm a faithful, I'm a traitor moment. Now, in my previous video, I suggested that the traitors might have peaked in popularity and it wouldn't surpass Celebrity Traitors. I was wrong. The new 8 PM family-friendly time slot helped push episodes to new viewership highs throughout the season. Putting Uncloaked on BBC One was also a really good call. It achieved higher ratings than that slot would normally get. And the Uncloaked part of the final, the Traitors Uncloaked, the bit talking about the main show, got 6 million viewers in the end. That was more than the last final of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here on ITV. That just shows you how big The Traitors is as a show at the moment, that even its companion show can thrash the main show of one of the biggest reality shows on TV of all time. And the I'm a Celebrity ratings, Yes, it doesn't do as well as it did. It still gets pretty healthy ratings and much higher ratings than most other things on ITV. That's live viewing alone before catch-up viewing is even taken into account. So looking ahead, rumours are already flying for the next season of the Celebrity Traitors. We'll probably find out some names soon. So people being named are people like Ruth Jones. I've seen the pop star Cheryl being named. But Danny Dyer's father, Danny Dyer, is the big name everyone's talking about. It wouldn't surprise me if they cast both Danny Dyer and Danny Dyer together, although hiding that relationship would of course be impossible. And the name confusion alone at the round table would be chaos, because everyone spells names wrong anyway. So who's to know if someone writes Danny with an I, whether they mean Danny without an I or Danny with an I? They'll have to wear name tags or something. There are some other names which I think would be fun. People like John Cleese would be interesting. I'm not sure he would do it. Joanna Lumley would give that sort of Stephen Fry vibe in terms of making it feel a very quality product. Graham Norton would be a huge signing as well. I'm not sure he would do it. Miriam Margolyes would be amazing. She also hates John Cleese, so that would be interesting if they were both in it. Apparently she turned it down the last time because she doesn't like elimination shows. And perhaps we had some of the craziness Miriam would have brought through Celia last season as well. Alison Hammond is heavily rumoured. I think she said before she can't do it because of Bake Off, but who knows, she likes to do every other programme on TV. I think she'd be good on this. One person who needn't bother applying is Christine Lampard though. Not sure anyone is going to trust a Northern Irish lady with long dark hair in her 40s. Those were some of my thoughts. Were you happy with the outcome of this season of the Traitors UK? Or were you a bit underwhelmed like me? Or do you think this was the only way it could have ended? Please like the video if indeed you did. Subscribe and ring the bell to get more videos like this. And the channel's also been approved for channel membership, so consider helping us that way.